All right, we're back. I am Geoff Harbaugh. This is the Real Reason podcast. If you go on Twitter today, I guess the instructions went out with the fake MAGA podcasters. Have you noticed the theme today that China's winning the war? They're talking about the Iran war. They're the real benefits. Beijing's laughing at us. Xi Jinping is happy. So I'm going to have, in about 20, 25 minutes, a guy coming up. I call him, he's a China expert, but I call him the China expert, Gordon Chang. He's going to break us down for us, and he's got a different theory too. He believes it's actually hurting China, and I do too. And just to get off to it economically, forget about the petroleum, the oil that they're being cut out on. Look at that Strait of Hormuz. Look at one of the graphics that they're all posting. China is an exporting economy. As you can know, everything that we buy here is made in China and across the world. Their whole economy is built on exports. How do you think all these shipping disruptions around the world is panning out with that? Just that alone. So we're going to talk with Gordon Chang. I've got another Robert Barnes update. I can't believe one of his I guess it was one of the bots, but one of them actually took up my challenge that I made. I said, find me any Robert Barnes interview that he's done, and I'll find you a lie within the first 10 minutes. Well, it's actually the first question I got. So I'll get to that at the end of the show. I'll play you his response, and it took me about 20 minutes. I completely blew it up. Once again, Robert Barnes, in his own words, correcting himself. So we'll have that too. I'm going to do some of that. The biggest question I've gotten with all the comments that everybody's asked me is, and I guess it's what I talk about with the attention spans of people. That we have, everybody wants to know about 2028 now. So I've got some theories. There's one guy, I'll tell you, it's in the Republican Party, who is never talked about, and I can't understand why. So I'm going to talk about him too. But first off, I'm going to start off with the Southern Poverty Law Center. Everybody is getting this wrong, even on the right. And just to do a quick fill-in, if you haven't heard, the Southern Poverty Law Center, it's the nonprofit group. You got to love these nonprofits that has been fighting racism forever. All they do is they find anybody that is making somewhat of an impact on the right, and they immediately label them hate. So it's actually come out, they've been funding the KKK, other white supremacist groups. The biggest thing is they were behind Charlottesville. And I mean, big time behind, organizing the buses. They organized the march. So we'll talk about that. But this is what I kind of want to get into because it's so much more. And let me tell you that this indictment to the fake MAGA podcasters out there that, oh, this is cash overreacting to it. This is going to be the tip of the iceberg. And I understand everybody wants to see Comey, Fauci, and everybody go to jail. This is what will break the Democrat Party because it's not just the Southern Poverty Law Center. It's a lot more, and I'm going to explain it to you. What's kind of going on with these dark money groups and all that type of stuff and the impact that it has. It relates to the fraud in Minnesota. It's all in one. But before we get to that, I kind of want to play the clip where I think the Southern Poverty Law Center is getting, they're kind of getting off easy here. And mostly it's the Democrat Party that's getting let off easy here. And this has kind of been the consensus. And I'm playing Gutfeld here because I like Greg Gutfeld a lot, so I'm not calling him out. But this was kind of just the consensus by most conservatives yesterday. Let me go ahead and play this clip for you first.
So America was running dangerously low on racism, and that's bad for business when your business is a racist smear. This is all this is. If your business is about demonizing people with racism and you don't have it, you got to make it up.
All right, here's my problem here with this. And again, I'm not calling out Greg. This has been the consensus. Is everybody's going with now that the Southern Poverty Law Center, they were kind of making up racism because it was going to bring more money in for them and it was better for their organization. And they'll even go back to, and this is the key point, but they're missing it here. They'll go back to Charlottesville and take a look at it. After Charlottesville, they're right. That's when the donations skyrocketed. That's when you had George Clooney gave them $1 million. Tim Cook from Apple gave him $1 million. A bunch of big money went in there. And why do I have a problem with that? Because it's not about the Southern Poverty Law Center. That it wasn't like they had to go make up things that are racist. Remember, before yesterday when this came out, this is a group that I bet you 98% of Americans has never heard of or has any idea what they do. So do you really think that, let's play this out here, that people saw Charlottesville and they were horrified, they couldn't believe it, and they said to themselves, you know what, we got to fight back against this. I'm talking about the people that believed it, and they wanted to stop it. And the first thing they said, I know, let's give money to the Southern Poverty Law Center because they have a website that nobody goes to, and it's an organization that nobody's ever heard of, and they're going to label these groups hate. They'll put them on their hate watch, and then that's going to stop racism. That's where I have a problem. The issue is it's the Democrat Party's business. And I bring this up as the example because this is the first one that we're seeing, and there is more to come. This is what all these nonprofit groups do that are involved with this dark money. They do things like this. They created Charlottesville, but the impact of it wasn't that, oh, now we're going to have this Southern Poverty Law Center is going to label them a hate group. It's going to stop it. No, they rode this forever. Charlottesville was talked about day in, day out for months after it, and it still went on. And that's the power that you get out of it. It's not that you needed this group to be able to fight racism to get money. It's that they're making up racism and people are voting on it. To this day, you will still have libs that'll bring up when they're arguing about Trump, when you're trying to have a reasonable conversation with them about something else. They'll go, what about Charlottesville when they caught them fine people on both sides? That is what you have here. It's the operations that they're running. So let me play this because this is classic. I want to go to this just to show you kind of what they got out of it, and they're still talking about it. Charlottesville is 2017. This is 7 years later, Kamala Harris.
Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side.
7 years still. Now, we know Kamala Harris is a moron, but the point of this is she knew at that debate that it was going to be worth her while and it was good for her to do it, because you got to remember the way the Democrats, they prepare for these debates at no end. There was probably, I would say, 10 to 15 times Kamala did a mock draft, and she had a team of 20 to 30 people working on it, coming up with things that you have to say that you have to get in there. They decided that in that debate, one of the most important things is they had to hammer Charlottesville 7 years ago, because they know there is still people that will have an emotional response to that. There are still people that will vote in this for 7 years ago. So this is what I'm talking about as far as we go back to the Southern Poverty Law Center. It's the payoff of what you get. Who knows what some of these other groups are doing, but I have a feeling we're going to find out pretty soon, at least some of them. The operations that is, that I think they spent, it was $270,000 on the Charlottesville rally. And I remember when that happened that day. It was actually my birthday. I remember just going on YouTube, and all of a sudden I was seeing all these things, the protest. I had no idea what it was. And I worked in media at the time. I've never even heard of it, that this thing was going to happen. And it just came out of nowhere. But as you could see, they created this spectacle, and they rode this now for 7 years. And do you know how many votes they've gotten out of this? There's estimates of astronomical numbers that left-wing groups spend on what's called political dark money. What that is, it's basically PACs. You give it to nonprofits or these special interest groups, all this type of stuff. This is how Democrats win elections. And I went on to Gemini, even, which is supposedly it's the most liberal out of all the AIs. They admitted to, I got to hear, just in 2024 alone, the left-wing groups spent $1.2 billion with a B on left-wing groups like this, which is the Southern Poverty Law Center. So I'm going to go to that, and I want to do this one more time. Let me play Cut Biden. So remember, $270,000, this is what you bought. This is what that bought you. It got you 7 years of this. And this is Joe Biden. Remember, this is why he decided that he just had to run for president. Let me play you this.
I ran for president in 2020 because of what I saw in Charlottesville in August of 2017. Extremists coming out of the woods, carrying torches, their veins bulging from their necks, carrying Nazi swastikas, and chanting the same exact anti-Semitic bile that was heard in Germany in the early 30s. Neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and the Ku Klux Klan, so emboldened by a president then in the White House that they saw as an ally.
All right, so there we go. So just first of all, I always love when he told the story. I just picked that one. He told it 20 or 30 times. It's probably because once he was in the Oval Office, that was one of the only stories that I remembered. But this line, just on the face of it, is so stupid. Like, he's just, as all of a sudden, he was tired, he was retired, he's walking away from politics, he was done, that's it. And then all of a sudden, he was sitting on his couch, and he saw this, and he couldn't believe it, and it scared him so much that he decided, before he went senile, who was well known as one of the absolute dumbest people to ever become vice president of the United States. Absolute dumbest people, one of the most corrupt people. And then he decided to himself, oh, you know what? That's it. I can't do it. I can't sit on it anymore. I'm the only one that can do it. I can stop this guy. The whole story, it's so stupid. It sounds like a bad movie. But I'm playing you these clips just to show you, especially if you don't follow the news every day. Charlottesville was hammered inside and out the media for years. And that's what $270,000 got you. So that's some of the things that these groups do. But I want to take it to you one step further. It's not just the ops that they do, things like this with Southern Poverty Law Center and some of these other dark money groups, is they are also very good at labeling anybody a hate group. I'm sure you saw Charlie Kirk and TPUSA was labeled it. There's a couple of moms groups that we were associated a lot with on the show that I used to work with. Moms for America, Moms for Liberty. They basically, they became famous kind of for going to school board meetings under the Biden years, and they were exposing pornography, complete pornography that was in public libraries, and they were having to go to hearings to fight it. I remember when we were covering it the one time when I was working with Sebastian Gorka, we were doing a Newsmax segment on it. And the books that they're saying is not pornography, we couldn't even show the images on the screen because you couldn't show them on cable television. And we couldn't even show the words that they're talking about on cable television. So these groups were fighting that. And the Southern Poverty Law Center, they labeled them a hate group. So what the problem is, it's not that you just have some useless website or organization that nobody normal knows about. It's that starts getting linked up with other groups. And let me tell you a little story about that. There's another group that's called NewsGuard. Now, Google uses this. I think Facebook does. But this also, of course, started, getting the popularity is under the Biden years. And this is how they censor. This is another way that the Democrat political machine it destroys any type of opposition. And follow it along here because it all goes together. So NewsGuard is, back when I was talking about the old radio show I was working for, all of a sudden I get an email in my email box from somebody that they're talking about. Your nutrition label, your nutrition label, that's what they call it. It's very low. And what we have detected is a lot of, news misinformation that's being spread on your show and on your website, and also association with hate groups. So I call the person up. So the first issue that he has is this huge red flag. He says, you're a purveyor of false information. Your show had Donald Trump on, and Donald Trump said it was a rigged election, and nobody corrected him. Now just think about that for a second. So you're going to have a radio host who's going to have an ex-president of the United States on, who's also running to be president again. And he says, that was a rigged election. And we're supposed to stop in and either cancel the interview or at least say, whoa, hold on. The AP disputes those claims, and they say the 2020 election was the most secure election of all time. That was the guidance that they gave us, that they would have removed that strike from us. So it also goes to further things, too. And it was this. They said it was a promoter. I don't know what the exact terminology was, but this is NewsGuard, and I'll tell you why it's important. It was a promoter of hate groups, Moms for Liberty, Moms for America, because the Southern Poverty Law Center, because they're the authority on what's racist, what's not, what's a hate group, what isn't. They have determined that. So because of that, your nutrition label, I don't know, it was based out of 100 or something. It was like 57, 63, whatever made up number it was. So what happened with that? Well, they worked with Google. Within a week, guess what happened? Sebastian Gorka, not just the show website, not just the show, he's completely banned from Google ads. Now, why does that matter? Anything that's online, whether it's a website, you want to do YouTube videos, advertising, at the time, I think it was 93% of all revenue online was coming from Google ads. So you're basically gone, you're done. And it's not just that you're not getting monetized. When you're not monetized, your traffic is gone. No longer are you recommended. You basically don't exist. So they use these types of groups. This is NewsGuard working with the Southern Poverty Law Center to do what? It kills the opposition. Number one, it tries to bankrupt them because you have no revenue. Number two, you're not getting the message out anymore because it is their reason and their excuse to just not recommend you anymore and push you down the algorithm. So these things are all connected. And my point is why I'm saying you can't let off the Southern Poverty Law Center by just saying, oh, they wanted to think everybody was racist, so they would start racism with comments and things online. No, it's the opposite. It's the way they destroy the opposition. And there's going to be a lot more coming out with this. And another thing is I've been talking about, this kind of goes to a different thing though, but Act Blue. If you don't know what Act Blue is the primary fundraiser for the Democrat Party. I remember in the summer of 2020, the Black Lives Matter website, if you went to that website, the entire summer of the George Floyd riots, when it was the biggest attention there was, it redirected to Act Blue. And there's been some issues with this for a while. I know back in 2012, even it was, I couldn't believe this. There was an ABC report on it. It was 3-4 weeks before the election. And basically Obama's website, his campaigns, they weren't getting the security information, the 3-digit security code or zip codes, meaning they thought it was a lot of foreign money coming into. I mean, why else would you not do verification? You can't do anything online right now without verification. You can't order something for $8 without that. But you can give money to a political campaign, to a presidential campaign. And there's a lot of talks about Act Blue. Trump mentioned it in his Truth Social post yesterday. I think Act Blue, by the summer, you're going to see some similar tactics with that. So let me just kind of, before we get into Gordon Chang here, I want to play one other thing that I'm talking about with this. Here's Alex Marlow. This is another thing, and I'm talking about the way they kill you in the algorithms and they kill you financially. Alex Marlow, he is Breitbart News. He's their editor. He's been there forever. I think he was the first employee of Breitbart. And this is another thing that they've done to Breitbart News.
They said that our comments are a safe space for anti-Semitism. But, now you got to wonder, was our comments infiltrated by a bunch of people who were funded from the left? I'd always thought it was. Maybe we're starting to understand where that came from, because sometimes these people get in our comment section and they're just ginning up hate and division. And I'm wondering, are people paying for them? It also makes you wonder that the trolls that you see online, the people with far right content that's really just sort of racist content, divisive content, who's funding them? I think we're starting to get a sense of this apparatus.
Now, it's an interesting point there, and what he's talking about is the Southern Poverty Law Center. Now, I just tell you how they kill the opposition. They try to bankrupt you. They try to silence you. What he's talking about there is the comments. Let me bring you up this graph here, because I remember they made a big thing about this in 2020. Breitbart News, probably since the beginning of the Trump years, actually even a couple years for the Trump years, it's been the most popular, I'd say, website for the right. Pretty much, if not. Fox, I don't give it to Fox because Fox, they're known kind of for TV. Breitbart's known for their news and for their website. So this is the Google trends here. And take a look at what happened when Donald Trump got in power. This is them appearing in Google search results with your Googling a story. Look at the dip here. Now, look at this dip here in May of 2020. It's funny, too. It happened just before the election year, too. They basically flatlined. Google killed their entire business. Now, what happened at the same exact time? Breitbart got reported for these comments that Alex Marlow is talking about. This is the Democrat machine. So everybody that wants all this vengeance that I get so upset with these right-wing podcasters about, they want to go after Fauci, they want to go after Comey, they want to go after Brennan and everybody else, or Obama for whatever reason it is. And I said this before Donald Trump even got in. Though you're never going to get convictions out of it. I'd love to see it. It's not going to happen. If you want to break the party up, if you want to stop this complete nonsense, this is how you go after the Democrat Party. Right here. You do all this. You go after the donors. You start putting it together because there's so many more groups. There's so many more operations like this that is being taken on. This is how you go after the left. All right. So now that we've taken care of that, I'm going to do a little bit of the 2028, the guy that no one is paying attention to. And I don't know why nobody is. But first of all, as I wanted to get into the fake MAGA podcasters today, it's China's winning, Beijing's winning, Xi is winning. So I got to bring in the guy who is the China expert. You see him on Fox Business all the time. You see him on Fox. He's on a lot of podcasts. His name is Gordon Chang, and he joins us now on the Real Reason podcast. How are you, Gordon?
I'm fine, Geoff, and thank you so much.
Good. Thanks a lot for coming on. I appreciate it. Couple of things I just want to kind of get to. One of the first things that I'm seeing that's floating around is everybody's kind of focused on the oil and everything. And I know China came out today. They said that their economy's up. Am I wrong on this? Is China's economy, doesn't it thrive on exports? And this conflict can't be good for that, right?
Correct. The official National Bureau of Statistics reported that the Chinese economy grew 5.0% in the first quarter of this year. Now, that's fiction. And we know that because of a number of other factors. So, for instance, exports, and the export number is a little bit more reliable. They only grew 2.5% in the quarter. And we also know that that export number is inflated. And the reason, one of the reasons, is that Chinese exporters, in order to get advantage of government subsidies for exporting, basically report fake sales to get those subsidies. So we know that the Chinese economy is stumbling along. Nobody this side of heaven knows exactly where it is, but China has had a very difficult March because of the war. And I don't know where it is, but I think the Chinese economy is about 1% growth, if it's growing at all.
And hasn't the China economy kind of been struggling for a little while now?
Yes, certainly from COVID onwards. People expected that there would be a big bump after the epidemic. That didn't occur. And we have seen the last couple years some very disturbing signs out of the Chinese economy. The economy is in deflation. There is very weak consumer sentiment. Trade is, they did very well on trade last year, but the point is that in a deglobalizing world, and we're getting that way because of all the turmoil around the globe, I think China's in a very difficult position right now. Xi Jinping turned his back on consumption as the basis of the Chinese economy. So the only way the economy can grow is to export more. And you can't do that in a world where companies are shortening their supply chains, they're getting out of China. And so this is not a good story for Xi Jinping.
Yeah, now I want to see as far as this goes on now, this is kind of another thing where it's the global trade, all the problems that happen with it. If this thing drags out a little longer, I know it can't drag out too much more because it's going to hurt Trump a ton domestically. But as this kind of drags out, do you see anything with other companies saying we got to bring the supply chain back here and out of China? Is this a kind of another key factor, you think, in this?
It's another key factor, but also Xi Jinping, especially over the last 10 days or so, has been issuing rules or threatening to issue rules that have punished or will punish American companies. So I think that that's going to be not only a pull factor, there's going to be a push factor. as companies start to see that there is not much of a future in China. Now, most, in the financial markets, they love China right now, but that's not true for manufacturers.
Okay. Now, other than the economy, what is your guess on kind of what is the China's kind of view of this conflict now? Because I'm seeing it all over that China's the big winner, that they're kind of controlling this thing. They can tell Iran to kind of give it up at any point. What is the kind of their overview of this conflict? How much is it hurting them?
I think that Xi Jinping has made the decision that this war is not in China's interest. China has been fighting proxy wars all over the globe. You've got Ukraine, North Africa with insurgencies that look like wars. You got the Middle East wars starting in the October 7th attacks. Got the war, Pakistan and India, Pakistan and Afghanistan, other minor troubles around the world. And China has gotten a lot of advantage out of this and paid very little cost. And then Trump comes around and says, no, I'm not putting up with this anymore. And he goes after Venezuela, which is an important prop for China. He's now moving on Cuba and, of course, Iran. So I think that the Chinese are now starting to see there's a cost to their sly strategy of proxy war. They see problems in the Chinese economy with the oil shock. And I think that they have now decided that they want to sort of douse the fire that they previously lit.
And you brought up Venezuela here. If you put everything together, I'm kind of in the camp that it seems like a lot of the stuff that the Trump administration has been doing is to kind of weaken China when you put everything together. And you brought up Venezuela there. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit on how that actually hurts China?
Yeah, President Trump's national security strategy made the Western Hemisphere the number one priority, and that means reducing Chinese influence in Latin America and the Caribbean. And of course, Venezuela was China's most important friend. So taking Maduro and his wife out meant that Beijing is going to have problems with the interim government of Delcy Rodriguez. This means a really good story for the U.S. because you see the U.S. replacing Beijing in Caracas. And this is going to happen elsewhere because other countries in the region are starting to see that, they don't like Donald Trump. They don't like America, but they now realize they've got to deal with Donald Trump and they've got to deal with America. And a good example of this is the leftist Gustavo Petro in Colombia. So, Petro is sort of sidling up to Trump, and that's really the illustration of Osama bin Laden's key insight. And that is when people see a strong horse and a weak horse, they always go for the strong horse. And the strong horse is Donald Trump.
We're talking with Gordon Chang here, as I call him. He is the China expert. Getting into Venezuela, because you hear that all the time. And we've heard this for a decade now with the type of influence that China has on Venezuela. Can you kind of explain that to the average person that doesn't know much about geopolitics? Why would China want to do that? What is the benefit for them for having all this influence and kind of controlling Venezuela? And what have they lost since everything that happened in January?
First of all, Venezuela has been a destination for Chinese investment. So that's Chinese influence, Chinese loans, which at one time probably were around $62 billion. Now they're down substantially. That's because Venezuela has been paying off the loans by selling oil at discounted rates. So the one thing that China loses is that it now has an outstanding balance there. Venezuelans can't really pay it back. Yeah, China can buy Venezuelan oil, but not at the discounts that they've enjoyed for a very long period. But there's a bigger story, Geoff, and that is, I think that Xi Jinping, who reveres Mao Zedong, I think that he's adopted Mao's strategy of encircling the cities from the countryside. And he sees Venezuela as countryside and the United States as the city. So Venezuela was very important for constricting the United States. And now that's no more as President Trump has removed the Chinese influence there. He's going hard after the Chinese in Panama. And as I mentioned, countries in the region that don't like us are now believing that they've got to deal with Washington because they see the United States as the strong horse.
Now, the one thing that keeps coming up, I know Trump was supposed to meet with Xi. I think it was back in March, was it, the first time, and it got postponed because of the Iran war. And it's set for, is it next month? I think it's set up as they're supposed to have the meeting. Now, the general consensus, I guess, is that as long as this war in Iran is going on, that there's no way that Trump can meet with him. Do you kind of agree with that?
I certainly agree with it. First of all, I don't think he should go just on general principles, but he certainly shouldn't go in a war where China is an enemy combatant. So the president shouldn't be going to the capital there because the Chinese will say, and many people around the world will agree, that Trump is showing that he is in a subordinate position to China because he feels he needs to travel there to the capital of the enemy. So, that's not a good story at all. And I think we can, in general, we can accomplish more by sort of not chasing the Chinese for dialogue. Remember, Trump announced that meeting that was supposed to start on March 31st. The Chinese never announced it. Now Trump has announced the May 14th meeting. Again, Beijing has not confirmed. So, yeah, we talk about a May 14th meeting, but the Chinese are being standoffish. This is the general Chinese posture of we're arrogant, we're Chinese, we can do anything we want, and anyone who comes to our capital is a vassal.
And, the kind of the thing, too, with that is the way that Trump is, and I know the norms that you can't go there when you're under war. Trump is going to meet with them whenever he feels like he has the most leverage, because that's the way that he is. Now, do you think that this conflict has to be wrapped up to get more leverage over China? Or if this drags on up until the middle of May and it's hurting their economy and things are kind of in disarray, they're not exporting as much as they can, is there a chance that the Trump administration might have maximum leverage over China and that's the time to meet with them? Or no?
Either of those cases, Geoff, are right. If the Chinese are really, really hurting and the war is continuing, the Chinese will feel that Trump has more leverage. But as I said, the optics of that are really atrocious. So, if Trump wraps this up before May 14th, I think the Chinese, in a sense, really won't want Trump to be in their capital because he's unpredictable. The Chinese don't like that. So they may feel they have to have Trump there, but I'm sure that they are not going to enjoy the experience.
And one of the things, too, that I kind of want to get into is for the average person that I'm kind of trying to do this podcast to, and it's tough, you've got these different geopolitical things, is you hear about the China threat all the time and stuff. And I think a lot of people don't realize, basically the kind of the Cold War that we're in with them, with the AI race, we were left behind in the rare earth minerals, under the Biden administration. China's trying to push everyone off the petrodollar. The things that they do over here, just, funding these groups, organizing protests and stuff. Talk a little bit about all the type of stuff that China does that meddles with us and then why they really are a threat moving into the future.
Well, China identifies the United States as an existential threat. And it sees us as an existential threat, not because of anything that we say or do, but because of who we are. An insecure regime in Beijing is worried about the inspirational impact of America's values and form of governance over the Chinese people. So we will never have amicable relations with China as long as the Communist Party rules it. They declared in a landmark editorial in May 2019 in People's Daily, they declared a people's war on us. That phrase may not mean anything to Americans, but it means a lot to Communist Party officials. And they were being very helpful because PLA Daily, the main propaganda organ of the Chinese military, in March of 2023, defined People's War as total war. And they're playing this unrestricted warfare game against us. And unrestricted warfare is basically they use every point of contact to try to take down our society. So you mentioned some of them. Another thing that they're doing is making sure that fentanyl sales are high in the U.S. Fentanyl epidemic is not demand-driven. It is supply-driven epidemic. And it's the most deadly drug epidemic in U.S. history. And the Chinese, Xi Jinping has made 4 promises to American presidents to stop the flow of fentanyl. Obama 2016, Trump 2018, Biden 2023, and Trump 2025. and the flow of fentanyl is as high as ever. And we learned that from drug czar Sarah Carter last month in her comments to the UN. So, yeah, they are out to kill Americans, and they've been doing a pretty good job of it. So we have got to start defending our country, because even though we're a far stronger society than China is, we can lose our country because we're not defending it. And this is not just a Biden or a Democrat problem. This is also a conservative problem, a Republican problem. We are not defending ourselves with the vigor and determination that is necessary. And this, if we want to keep our country, we better start healing our divisions and going after our common enemy.
They are at war with us, and it's basically, I mean, to the average American, they don't, maybe we don't have the best relations with China, but it's not a big deal. I mean, what you just brought up, which blows my mind. I mean, what they have done with the fentanyl alone, with the amount of people that has killed, that's enough to make them the number one, threat to this country, just off the fentanyl alone. That doesn't even get into any of the other types of things. And the other thing is, China plays such a long-term strategy. I think it was in Peter Schweitzer's book. I read somewhere about the Chinese basically anchor babies that they've been bringing over here. And This has been going on for a while. And what people don't realize, when they're 18, everybody says, well, they can vote. Well, I don't care about that they can vote. They're in American City. They can get involved in politics and they can raise money. And you've got a lot of people that can come here legally raise money. I mean, the way that they can take over the political system that way legally, I mean, that alone is a huge threat.
Yeah, it is. And Peter Schweitzer's a hero. And as I mentioned, the Chinese use every point of contact to take down our society, including the citizenship clause of the 14th Amendment. We can amend our Constitution, but that's hard. The one thing we can do, though, Geoff, is that Congress knows that we have allowed visa-free entry for Chinese nationals into our country, and we can close that down. That's the route through the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, which technically is a sovereign state, but is essentially part of the United States. We need to shut that down. If we shut that down, we deal with a large portion of the problem of anchor babies. And there's a woman named Cleo Pascal. She has been highlighting this. She can tell you chapter and verse of what the Chinese are doing through the Commonwealth of the Northern Marianas. Congress knows about this and has chosen not to do anything about it. So let's do the easy stuff first, and then we can talk about the broader constitutional issues. But we can shut off a lot of this flow.
It blows my mind how long that's been going on. I mean, if we had some scheme to do this for another country, it would never, ever work, let alone go on as long as it can. The other thing is that we hear about, I just kind of want to get your opinion on, is that China might go in, they might overtake Taiwan. And just to give you kind of an idea, Taiwan is basically the chip capital of the world, correct?
Yes.
Would that be their main reason to do it now with the AI race?
Well, it would be a reason, but
Okay.
I think Xi Jinping would be willing to take over a radioactive slab if he had to use his most destructive weapons, because he's based his legitimacy on annexing Taiwan. So yes, he would like to take the island intact. That ain't going to happen for a lot of reasons. People in Taiwan don't see themselves as Chinese. We know this through self-identification surveys. Maybe 4, maybe 5% see them as Chinese, and about 65, 70, depending on the survey, percent see themselves as Taiwanese. And the younger age cohorts are more Taiwanese self-identifying than their parents. So this is not a story where the Chinese can, with political warfare, take over. People in Taiwan, they want good relations with China, but they say, well, we're not Chinese.
And for people that don't understand, you hear this a lot about Taiwan. They can't understand the importance. I'll sum it up this way. If China invades Taiwan, the stock market drops 30%. You won't be able to buy a new truck for about 2 years with the chips. That's the problem that I think you would have if they went into Taiwan. Last question for you, Gordon. I appreciate you coming on. Is Eric Swalwell. I'm sure you saw what happened to him this week. Everybody is blaming it on the Democrats, which is probably what happened, that they decided to take him out, is the Democrats. I just want to bring it up. We know that he had the relations with Fang Fang that you're aware of. Maybe my theory is, how does the CCP handle people when they're done with them? Would they do something with like what they did to Eric Swalwell this week? Could it have been them? Could they have had some involvement in this too?
I don't think that they were responsible for forcing him to resign, but let's remember that was grooming him, and this is the first time the Ministry of State Security contacted him, not when he was on the House Intelligence Committee, where he would be obvious benefit for China, but they first contacted him when he was on the City Council of Dublin City, California. And I can't believe that Swalwell was the only person that they were grooming. Now, if I don't blame Swalwell for being contacted by the Ministry of State Security. If we do that, then we have to eliminate and remove every member of Congress. But the reason why the American public should be upset at Swalwell was because he was not willing to talk about his relationship with Christine Fong. And that means there is something there. If he were willing to openly talk about it, say, yeah, I had the relationship, it was wrong, I'm sorry to my wife, that would be okay, because I would then know that there was nothing wrong that he did. But because because he clammed up about it, I'm really concerned about his relationship with the Ministry of State Security. As I said, MSS, they've contacted and have been in contact with, I think, probably every member of Congress. So that's not the crime. The crime is not talking about it, not being frank with the American people. He had that obligation, and he absolutely refused to fulfill it.
Yeah, and that's the big point too. Is like you said, they did this when he was a city council member of not even a very big city. I mean, they had no idea the guy's going to end up being a member of Congress, let alone sitting on the intel community. So how many people have they done this to? I mean, right now, that's the big question.
That's a great question. That's a critical question. And I don't have the answer to that. Only the Ministry of State Security can tell you that. But obviously, he could not have been the only person they were grooming. So you have to say that there were hundreds of Swalwells, or are hundreds of Swalwells, maybe even thousands of them. The point is, they were reaching down at a very early stage in Swalwell's career, which means that there have got to be a lot of Swalwells around this country.
Gordon, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it. He is the China expert, as I call him. His new book, it's Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. Thanks a lot for coming on, Gordon.
Well, thank you so much, Geoff. I really appreciate it.
So I got a Robert Barnes update. If you don't remember Robert Barnes is that fat, disgusting slob lawyer that you see all the time now, because he's starting to go viral because he goes on Alex Jones and makes things up. And I did a video, it's 12, 15 minutes long, just of Robert Barnes' words now versus his words before. And actually, I put out there a challenge. Any of his fans, I said, if you want to send me any interview that he's done within the first 10 minutes, I'll find a lie that he's done and I'll prove it. So I was sent this. This is an interview that he did this week. He's just back on his game now. He's trying to step it up. So now Robert Barnes, he's going with Donald Trump is senile. He's as bad as Biden. He's losing it mentally. And everybody's known about it for a while. Let me go ahead and play this cut for you.
Trump is running too much of the show at the moment. Given that his declining mental state that started in the fall, and so it's a combination of age and stress. I think we saw it with Biden. So the president's definitely running the show, and he's running the show to a degree that has everybody else nervous around him. So when I was up there in January, I heard from a range of people that they were describing somebody that was starting to lose it.
All right, so that's his big thing now. He's losing it, and then he talks about this trip that he had in January. And I'm going to have some more information on this trip. He brings this trip up every interview that he does because he likes to pretend that he's this insider and he's doing all this type of stuff. His trip to Washington, the guy mentions it every single interview. So he talks about how Trump's losing it, and he was warned by everyone around him in the White House that Trump was losing it. This was even back in January. He goes on here.
He thinks, oh, maybe I'll be president of Venezuela. It's no longer like all joking. And everybody around him in the White House is nervous. It's been bad that basically everybody was told months ago, don't share any negative information with him at all. It'll trigger his rage.
All right, so that's the thing now. He's going around that Trump is insane. He's worse than Biden. It's been going on since January, and he found this out in January from all of his so-called insiders. So I figured I would go back to him. I found Robert Barnes' show that he does, where he decided to tell the audience about his trip to Washington, D.C. Now, would this be your reaction as you're listening to this? Just think about this for a second. You just went to D.C. Now you're saying all this stuff now that he's been saying. That Trump's selling us out. It's like the Bush regime from before. He's being influenced for them. And you found that he's going senile. He's worse than Biden. Remember all this that he just said. And everybody's known it. Everybody around them known it. All right, so what would you tell your audience? Ready? Here's Barnes after he went to Washington when he supposedly discovered all this stuff.
For the most part, it was the most encouraged I've ever been out of any trip to D.C. since I was like a young teenager. This Trump administration is light years better than his first term. The old Bushites who dominated throughout the large parts of the personnel are gone. The K Street lobbyist crowd are on the outs for the most part, and that makes it very open. And then you have a lot of people wanting to serve the interest of voters, who have prioritized serving the interest of voters, who want reform and remedy. And this is throughout the entire government at every level. So there's some great opportunity for real reform, real remedy, positive change at every level and throughout every aspect of the cabinet.
Let me ask.
All right, so that was just so you know, I'm not cherry picking it. That's the first time he addressed it. It's the day after he got back. That's the first thing that they discussed. That's the first thing out of his mouth. Now, if you just found out that Trump's going nuts, he's senile, he's worse than Biden, and he's selling us out to the Bush crowd, would that be your response? Let me just ask you that. So there's Robert Barnes again. Another lie. Keep sending them to me, too. The bots. It sounds like Donald Trump. The bots, if you're listening, send me the rest of Robert Barnes' interviews, and I'll find the lie in it. It's so easy to do because it barely takes any time. The guy literally debates himself all the time. All right, so you want to break down the 2028? All right, here's what do you guys want to hear first? Should I give you the Vance Rubio kind of prediction because that's all everybody's talking about now, or do you want to know the guy that I can't believe no one's talking about with? Let's start with Vance and Rubio first because this is the biggest comment that I've been getting as far as 2028. I have no one that I've actually am supporting over anyone else right now, as far as now goes. And that's the first time I've been like this for a while. Ever since Trump walked down, actually, to be honest with you, the only time that I say that I really was upset with Trump and opposed him was when he didn't run in 2012. You guys remember when he was flirting with running then? I was actually upset for about a week at him because he didn't run then. So I've had no primary challengers, even a thought of it since then. But I'm sitting this one out for a little bit. I'll make a decision at some point. But the only reason is I kind of like both these guys, and I don't see one that's, too much ahead of the other at this point. But the first thing it was, if you remember, probably since the debate in 2024 with Tim Walz, J.D. Vance kind of became the favorite then, up until maybe 6-7 months ago, because all the foreign policy things that are going on. Marco Rubio, he's starting to be talked about more, so people are kind of putting him in there. Then there's all this backroom speculation that Trump likes Rubio more, and there's a lot of that going on. What is coming out of that, and this is what's good for us, and this was the most important thing said at the State of the Union, because the best type of politician that you can have is a politician with ambition to go to the next level. Because that's kind of the only times they actually do things. So let me play this cut for you, then I'll show you what I'm talking about.
This is the kind of corruption that shreds the fabric of a nation, and we are working on it like you wouldn't believe. So tonight, although started 4 months ago, I am officially announcing the war on fraud to be led by our great Vice President J.D. Vance. He'll get it done. And if we're able to find enough of that fraud, we will actually have a balanced budget overnight. It'll go very quickly.
All right, I'm playing this and I'm doing this today because this might be the most important thing as far as an action that comes out of that State of the Union. Because here is what's going on right now. As I said, the best type of politician is that you can have is a guy with ambition who has accomplished more, whether you like him or not. And I don't really like the guy, but I'll even say it as a governor in the last 20 years. Not even close. It's Ron DeSantis, and it's what he did the year before he ran the presidential primary because he had ambition. That is when these politicians will do the most. And what is going on right now, and this is why I'm not supporting either one of them either, is this little rivalry that's going on with Vance and Rubio. The only people that are going to benefit from it is people like us. And what I'm talking about here is J.D. Vance was kind of the favorite for the first year and a half, ever since he was named the vice president. And here's what happened. Rubio's been overshadowing him probably the last 3, 4, 5, 6 months. He's getting talked about more. So J.D. Vance, I'm sure, is pissed off about it. And he should be. And he wants to do something about it. So this is what's going to happen now. He's being put in charge of this fraud. This type of fraud that I'm talking about is the Minnesota fraud, what's going on with the Southern Poverty Law Center. And he's going to be the face of it. Because right now, J.D. Vance, and this is great for us, with everything that's going on with foreign policy, all of the wins that you have, J.D. Vance has to do something. He has to get behind something like that. So he is now going to be, and it's going to heat up as the summer comes on, and especially as you get closer to the midterms, as the face of what's going on with this fraud, because you need somebody to go out there and sell it. And whether you like Vance or not, he's good at that. He can get up in front of a camera. He can give a press conference. He can go on podcasts. He can talk about it in long form. This is a weapon that we have. And if you heard everything that I was kind of talking about in the beginning with the Southern Poverty Law Center, the ops that they do, the way that they attack the opposition, everything that they do and all these groups and everything that happens with the fraud, it's done for one reason. It gives the Democrats more power. It helps them get elected. So this is going to help out a lot for that. So if you're talking about 2028, right now, it's Vance on the Republican side. It's Rubio on the Republican side. I put them both tied, if not pretty close. But the one guy that I can't believe that people aren't talking about, and I bring this up for one reason, is this guy, other than Trump, I think has been attacked more by the media since he joined the cabinet. I can identify, there's 4, I'd say, week-long to 2-week-long news cycles that they just run against him trying to take him out. And the guy that I'm talking about is Pete Hegseth. And I bring him up because I have, ever since 2010 when I started following this, I've always let MSNBC basically pick the primary guy for me. No matter what it is, whether it's an appointment somebody's that's going to be up, whoever MSNBC and the Washington Post and New York Times that they attack the most, this is right almost all the time, they're usually the best candidate. They are afraid of Pete Hegseth. If you remember, during the confirmation, they made up the fact that he was an alcoholic, which was the stupidest attack that you could ever have. As a guy that's worked on radio morning shows before, that schedule is so grueling. It sucks so bad. You have to get up so early, and then you have to be with it and sharp. It's impossible to be an alcoholic and do a morning show. Maybe you do an afternoon show, you do a night show, maybe you can pull that off. It is absolutely impossible to do that. On top of that, how about a weekend show that's on TV? So I'm supposed to believe that Pete Hegseth is this raging alcoholic, but somehow he gets up every Saturday morning and Sunday morning at 3:30 and is at Fox at 4 and goes on the air at 5:30, and he looks completely normal in front of the camera. The whole idea is so stupid. It's so made up. But they ran that against him. They did other things against him trying to stop his nomination. Do you remember back in September, the drug boats? It was the war crime. Remember that went on for a couple of weeks. Now they're trying to impeach Hegseth. They also had Signalgate back last May. That lasted for a couple of weeks. They have tried to take this guy out 4 times. And there's only 2 reasons they do this. Whenever they focus on anybody, it's because and this is not what's going to work with Pete Hegseth, and that's why you know it's the latter, is they build a character around somebody that they know that if it's kind of the first impression you get to most people, they won't like them. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Ted Cruz, they did it with them forever. They tried to make them the face of the Republican Party because they take out things that they said and they would know too, out of context or whatever it is, that just their personality, they would seem like a lunatic or they would seem nuts to kind of the normal person. That's not Pete Hegseth. Look at his personality. Guy was on TV forever. He looks like a normal guy. He seems like a nice guy. Like him or not, he doesn't seem like an idiot. He doesn't seem like a buffoon. So why are they doing that? Because he's a threat. They know he's likable. So I would not sit on Pete Hegseth. And there's a reason they've been attacking him so hard and going after him. So things can change quickly in politics. I would not stop. I would definitely not kind of count out Pete Hegseth.